Hi guys, welcome back to another video on Next.js15. In this video, I'm going to be talking about the best way to validate and build forms in Next.js15. So this video is specifically will be targeting how to perform async operation to store data through form in the database, how to validate, how to handle errors within the form for different fields. So I've created this project. This is a new Next.15 project and I'm just running it. And this is the default UI that Next.js15 provides. And you can see that it contains this package.json file and I'm using the version 15, and version 15 of Next.js is built on top of the React version 19. So first of all, I'm going to be setting up few UI, few file structures and build the form UI. The UI is not the main purpose for this particular tutorial, but the purpose is how to validate the fields of the form, how to perform async operation, how to show loader on clicking on submit button for the form, and store asynchronously data in the database and perform these kinds of operations. So I will be using Zod for the validations. I will be using the amazing hooks like use form status, use action state to fetch the data of the form field, pass this data to our server actions, validate the form on the server actions using Zod. So the benefit of Zod is that we can validate forms both on client side as well as on the server side. And once the form is being submitted, we will be using the use form status hook to show the loader on the submit button, and then we will be showing the error messages or a success state message if the form data have been successfully submitted in our database. So let's configure our project with the folders and file structure and install required packages that we will be needing in this particular app. So first of all, I'm going to be installing all the required packages for this particular app. So first of all, I will be using Prisma for querying the data and store the users form data in the database. And then I will be using the mongodb, that I will be storing the URL of the Mongo Atlas DB in my Prisma. And then I will be having the Prisma, I will be needing the Zod. So let's hit enter. So all these four different packages are needed. And the reason I have chosen these particular packages because usually in all the projects that you are going to be building, you might be using ORM, whether it's Drizzle or Prisma, or you might be building these different large projects using these technologies. So I don't want to just submit the form without using Prisma ORM or these kinds of technologies. So let's clear this out. These packages have been installed. Once these are installed, let's go over to the layout and let's configure default layout for our app. So let's move the children in our div, and I will be having these classes to it so that I can move everything at the center of the page. MX Auto max width 5 pixel, height screen. For the layout, that's pretty much it. Let's close it. On the page.tsx, I will be adding any user form. So let's remove everything that we have here. And I will start off with initializing with the initial div element, and then I will be needing user form component that I yet need to create. Okay, I don't want to convert this particular route page.tsx file into a client component by writing use client at the top. Instead, I want this component to be rendered from the client side. So class name, so let's give it flex, width full, height full, items center, justify center. Okay, so let's create a new folder, components, and inside these components, let's create a new file and let's write user form.tsx. Okay, so let's have a default component structure and let's import that user form over here. So this is how I have imported. Okay, so in this particular user form, I will be first creating the form. I don't want to waste your time and writing the HTML for you guys. Instead, I will simply be copy pasting the initial structure for the form so that we can save our time. So let me explain you what it contains. So this is the parent div. With default stylings with width and the border colors. This is the form element. Okay, and inside this form, each div element have a label like a first name, an input, for entering the first name, like the ID, name, and the class name and the type text. And all of the rest of divs contain the similar structure, label, and then the input. And I have changed the type for the email to email. For the zip code, I've changed the type to number, and at the end I have this button within the form with type submit and with this text submit. All right. And first of all, let's try and run the project, that how it is looking like, and it's running without any error. So let's go over here, let's refresh this particular page. So this is the form which I have built and it's looking pretty cool. Don't focus on the UI, you can always come to this particular component and design it according to your own requirement. But the main purpose is again validating, error handling, submitting forms, showing loaders, perform asynchronous operations to avoid any kind of errors, add the security checks like adding validations for this form both on the client side as well as on the server side. Okay, because Next.js is a full stack framework. So let's close it up. Let's close this page.tsx file. Let's close the layout. This is the main file that we will be needing. So first of all, let me configure Prisma quickly. So we have already installed Prisma client and Prisma, and now I'm going to be writing npx Prisma in it, and this is going to generate the Prisma folder and the schema file for us. You can see Prisma and the schema.prisma file have been generated. We won't be using this Postgres. Instead, you can use Postgres if you want. It will work in a similar way. I will be changing it to the MongoDB. And after that, I will be having one model only because this is just for submitting the form. So this is the default model which I have added. It's contain ID, first name, last name, email, phone, address, zip, and similar fields which I have added in this particular form. All right. So let's save this particular file. And now once that is done, let's open this env file. I'm using the free version of the MongoDB instance, so you can use yours, but this is what I have pasted. Okay, this is the configuration for the DB which I have already created in my Mongo Atlas. Okay, I was already testing this out. So now let's remove this particular user drop. And this has been dropped because I want to show you how can I push all the schema onto my database. Currently it contains nothing. Okay, I've refreshed, it contains nothing. Now I've added this database and I've added this particular schema client. And now let's go to the project and create one new folder, utils. And inside the utils folder, let's create a new file. And this is going to be the client.ts. And this is used to perform the query operations to the database. So I've just got this code from the Prisma documentation, and it is specifically for Next.js because in development mode our components render 2 times. So once the instance already exists, we don't want to create the new instance for the Prisma client again and again. And this is specifically for Next.js again. Okay, so let's close this up. And in the terminal, what I can do is, first of all, I can npx Prisma generate to see if there is any error. No, there is no error. And currently in our Prisma schema, we have the user model only. Okay. So let's push this particular schema to our database, which we have already configured by entering this particular database URL in our env file. Okay. And if you are using other database models like the Postgres, SQL, you might need to have some different structure over here for the ID. Rest of things I think will not be changed for the Postgres. You can refer the documentation for the Prisma. Okay, this is just to let you guys know, but that how the DB operations are performed. But the main topic of this video is the forms. So let's quickly write npx Prisma db and then the push. So I'll hit enter. So let's see if it pushed all the schema to our database and generated Prisma client. This is successful. Let's go over here. Let's refresh and see if the model have been added over here. And you can see that the user model have been generated over here in our database. It means that there is no error in our schema, and it is working pretty fine. And whenever we will be performing any DB operations, there won't be any issue in terms of this schema models. Okay, So let's close this up. And now it's time to come back to this particular file and start building the form and validating it and submitting the results in our database. So first of all, I will be validating the form on the client side before I can validate on the server side and store the user's data in the database. Okay, so let's come over here. So first of all, we have this particular form. How we can enter the data in these particular input text boxes and store it in some kind of variable, in an object, or in different variables. So there is a concept called the server actions in Next.js. I've already created a separate video on my channel about the server action. If you want to learn it separately, you can check that video out. But the server actions, in short word, any operation that we want to perform on the server side are called server actions. Okay, so let's create a new function. So I'm going to write const handle submit like this, and I don't need all of these types. Instead, for now, let's add any over here. Okay, so inside this handle submit, first of all, I'm going to prevent all the default operations, default functionality for the form, because I want to handle the form in my own way. Okay, and in this particular handle submit, I will be validating the form on the client side. First of all, let's make this component client side because it require user interaction. So any component that require user interaction, it require us to convert that particular component to render from the client side. Okay, so what are the server actions? First of all, in this particular form, there is a keyword like an action, and inside it we can have we can call any server action function. It can be the handle submit, okay, directly to store the data in the database. But we can trigger this particular server action within another function as well, manually, rather than directly entering the action function over here. Okay, and the reason I will not be using this action directly in the form, because I want to validate the form on the server side, actually on the client side, and if it is validated on the client side, then I will proceed further to perform all the different operations and validate the form on the server side as well, and then store the data in the database. Okay, so now instead of the action, I will directly be writing on submit handle submit over here. Okay, now we have this name keyword added over here in each input text boxes. Okay, we can use this particular name value to fetch the data in this particular function. So first of all, so I'm using an awesome extension which actually suggests me what I can write. Most of the time it gives me the correct code. So let me quickly show you. So this is an extension, Super Maven. This is an awesome copilot, a fastest copilot, and this is an awesome extension. You can install it if you want. Okay, let's hit enter form data, and this is going to be the new form data e-target. So first of all, we have this particular form data. Let's try to log this out and see what we get in this particular form data. So let's run the project npm run dev, and I'm going to filling up the form and see what gets printed over here. So let's refresh this URL, and I'm going to write anything over here like this. Click on submit. Actually, I need to write a proper email because the type is email. Click on submit, and let's see, we have this submit. This is on the client side, so I'm going to write inspect console log, and this is the form data that have been added, and these are the values. It contains all the data. So one way to fetch all the data at once is to actually parse it. So let's write const fields equals to object dot from entries form data. Let's write fields. Now let's refresh. Let's enter these details. Submit. Let's go to the console window. Inspect console, and this is the object. And now if I open this up, you will see that I'm able to fetch an object of all the values which are entered in this particular form: address, email, first name, last name, phone number, and the zip. Now I want to validate the form values on the client side. For example, I've already set the validation, like it should be the text type, it should be the email type, and it should be the number type. Now let's say I want to validate these fields, that the minimum value of the first name should be 6, maximum should be 30, and this, it should not contain any digit. So these kinds of rules that I want to add for this particular form for each of these field. Here comes the Zod. Since I will be using Zod for validating form values on both client and server side, so I will be creating a separate utility file for the validation of this form. So let's come over here in the utils folder. You can create this file anywhere you want. So user validations.ts. Okay, now here I will be importing the Zod, and Zod provides us Z. So it has already, because Super Maven is already suggesting me few things: first name, last name, email, full address. So let me hit tab of my keyboard and select all of these. Okay, and how cool this extension is, I will be modifying it just now. So this provides an object, z.object, and it contains all of actually the Super Maven automatically gone through this schema and detected that these are the fields which I'm trying to submit. So first name should be of type string. This is one validation. The minimum value for this particular first name should be 2. Let me make it 3. And if I write comma after that, I can enter any error message if the first name is not validating properly. So I can write first name must be at least 3 characters. So this is the error message which I have entered. And after that, I can have another max function as well. So for the max function, let's give it 15, and first name must be at most 15 characters. So these are the error messages for the first name. I can have more error messages, I can have more functions. Like if I write dot, you will see that it provides us a lot of different functions that we can use to actually set the default rules and the validations for this particular first name field. Okay, for now we are good with these kinds of validation, type string, and these kinds of things. For the last name, I will be using the same kind of errors. So let's try to add it like this. Last name, it should be string 3 and then the 15. For the email, it should be of type email, which I have already set. And if the email is not correct, I can have an invalid email directly inside it. Okay, and after that we can have a minimum letters for it. Let's give it minimum maybe 8. Okay, at least 8 characters, and we can put the maximum as well. So max 255, email must be at most 255 characters, email can be too lengthy. Yeah, so for the phone number, we can go with the same kind of stuff, but we can add max, not before optional. I can write max phone number can be maximum 20 characters, and it can be the nullable as well. Because if I go to the schema, you will see that phone address and zip, these are optional. If you don't pass anything, it will not throw any error. So we can add a nullable to it as well. Okay, and we can pass the optional as well. So for the address, we can have maximum. So maximum, optional, nullable. Let's not write nullable to the address. For the zip code, it has to be a number. It should not be a string. But whenever we get the form data in this particular fields, all the data which is received is in the form of strings. So while we will be actually submitting the form, we can have it, even though this is a number, but whenever it is received using these particular things, form data, it will be in the type of string. Okay, so we can go with the string, and I have added it a string type as well over here. All right, so let's go with the string. Let's go with the optional. So let's say I want to separately add some regex operation to it. I don't want to use the pre-built functions like min, max, these kinds of things. There is a pre-built function like refine. Refine actually give us this value. This is the arrow, and after that we can have the regex that phone number or a zip code should contain only digits, should be of length this. So these kinds of things, and we can apply this refine function to all of these fields above. Okay, so let's add refine like this. So I have added refine value, and this is a regex. This is going to test the value which is being passed to this zip. And if this is not validated, then this error message is going to be thrown. Zip code must be numeric. All right, so we have written down all the validation rules. Let's go over here in the users form, and let's try to use that particular sort validations. So inside the user form, below this console log, I can have const validation and equals to, let's write user data. What we have here, user validations. Yes, so user validations dot save parse field. Save parse is a built-in method provided by Zolt, and this is going to automatically validate all the rules that we have set over there. And if the rules are validated, then this is going to return us success response. Otherwise success is going to be false. Success can be true or success can be false. So let's write, if this is not success, then here we are going to validate the form, and then we are going to show some kind of maybe error message. Okay, rather than entering console log, let's add a state variable over here, and this state variable is going to show the error messages if error messages exist. So error messages, set error messages, and then the use state of type string. Let's remove it. And this is going to be a string. So let's bring it in at the top. All right, so let's come over here within the if condition, and I'm going to write set error messages validation dot error dot flatten dot field. So currently if I hover over it, this is not going to return me a string, but this is expecting the type of string. So let me go through it, and let me console log this out and see what it provides. So let's go over here, let's inspect console log, and now I'm simply going to add some kind of error, zip code 123, and if I click on submit, you will see that it is giving me this. I think this is an object, okay, and this is not a string, and each object contains key value pairs with the errors for a particular field which are not following the rules which we have set using Zord. So first name must be at least 3 characters, last name must be at least 3 characters. Phone number and address was optional, that's why there is no error for that, even though we have not entered anything. Zip code and email are fine. Okay, so now in order to show these error messages all together, I can write any utility function that can convert these key value pairs and store it in the form of string on different lines. I can it's up to us how we want to format these error messages and show it below each of these text boxes, or we can combine all of these error messages all together in the form of string with break lines at the end and show it below all of these different fields. So I'm going to opt the second option, show the error messages below all of these text boxes. So here in the utils, I'm going to create a utils file, and inside this particular file I'm going to format those error messages which I've already written. This is simple JavaScript function which I have simply generated through AI, and what it's going to do is it's going to take these objects of key value pairs, and this is going to format it and append each error messages with the breakpoint so that we can see each error messages on a separate line. And this is going to append all of these error messages which are over here and show below all of these text boxes. Okay, so let's use that over here. So now let's uncomment, and here I can use format. What was that? Let's see. We have format error messages. So format error messages, this one, and let's pass this out to it. All right, so these are passed, and we need to find a way where we want to show these error messages in our TSX. So let's write it over here. Okay, so now what I can do is I can simply check if the error message exists, like it. Let's wrap it within these curly braces. If the error messages exist, then I'm simply going to show these error messages data using the dangerously styled HTML using this particular format. So what it does is it will going to perform an operation to this BR tags to move the next error messages to the next line. That's why I needed to do this way. Okay, so now let's go over here. Let's write maybe this one. This is going to be this string. So currently there is an error message for first and last name. Let's click on submit. All right, you can see that it has shown these error messages. For the first name must be at least 3 characters. Okay, let's write this one. And now last name must be at least 3 characters. We have entered over here, and even though this is a digit, but this is behaving like this is within the double quotes. All right, we can have a separate validations using this particular function refine for these things, that whether after conversion of this value we are getting actually the numbers or all the letters or alphabets. We can add the validations. It's your assignment, you can do it. So these are the different validations that we have set from the client side, which is working fine. Okay, so once this is being validated over here, okay, and if this is false, means the valid, there is no error, then I'm going to proceed further and perform the DB operation and store the user's data in the database. Since this is a client side component, DB operation can be performed on the server side. So this is where server actions comes in. So now I'm going to create a new folder over here, and let's add actions. All the actions can be added over here. You can have your own folder structure if you want. So user actions.ts. Inside it, I will be creating a user actions, and to let Next.js know that this is going to be run on the server side, I need to write use server at the top. Inside it, I'm going to write a function that we can call a server action. So const and save user async, and inside it, it is going to take a previous state like error, and it can have a success of type boolean. Okay, and then we can have a payload passing the form data of type form data. Okay, so let's add an arrow function over here, and let's wrap it with the curly braces. Okay, and inside it we can get the form data, like destructure it form data from the payload. Okay, so let's save it. So this is the function which I'll be calling from this else block, and I will be passing the form data which I'm receiving over here. But first of all, I'm going to be using an amazing hook which is called use action state, and this particular hook automatically handles a state which is being passed from the server actions, trigger the server actions, and also managing all the variables which are being returned from this server actions. So let's write const, and this is going to take the state, and this state can receive the default values like the error and the success for this particular previous state which I've already added over here. This is simply a TypeScript thing which I have added. Okay, So now state, and then this is going to be a form action equals to use form action, and inside it I'm going to be writing save user, which is the name of the server action function which I have just created, and then I need to provide it the default values. Default value is going to be there will be no error, and the success is going to be there will be no success. So these are the default values. Let's see why it is giving us this particular error. Use, this is not use form action, this is use action state. Okay, this has to be imported from the React, and this is the safe user. This safe user should be coming in from I think it is not returning anything as of now from here. So let's quickly return something so it doesn't give any error. Return, and now you can see that the error is gone. Okay, and inside this else block I'm going to pass this particular form data to that server action. So this one like this form action, this is the form action function, and this is the form data which I'm passing to it. All right, so let's try to log this form data and see what it prints. In fact, we are passing this form data, not the field. So let me quickly parse this out. So first of all, let's try to parse it just like I have parsed it over here. Object dot from entries form data, and I can have a data type to it as well. So record, and this is going to be of type string, and the second is going to be of type form data entry value. Okay, so let's try to log these fields, and by entering the correct data to it, otherwise it will go inside this if block, but I need to write the correct data so that this else block can be triggered and I should see the output within this console log fields. Okay, although this is not going to be printed on the browser because browser only print logs which are rendered from the client side. This is on the server side, so we need to see this terminal to see the output of these fields. Okay, so let's quickly refresh it. I've already commented out the client side variants, so let's try to do this, zip, submit, and let's come over here, and in the terminal you can see that it has printed the same values which I've added. It means that in the server actions we are successfully able to pass the data, and this data can be actually used to validate the fields based upon the Zod rules which I have added, and then once these are validated I can process and store this user's data in the database, just like I have validated it by writing the safe parse over here. Let's copy this line, and I'm going to add this line over here, and now let's bring it in like this, and I can check if validation is not successful, then I can log these errors over here, and I can return the error true and success false, and I can pass the errors over here. So I can write error details, and then validation dot error dot flatten, just like it is being logged above, flatten dot field errors. So on the backend side, if the validation is not successful using Zod rules which we have added over here, then it is going to return the data from here. So let's first of all try this out, and inside it whenever something is being returned from here, it is going to be received within this state variable. Okay, whenever this is going to be changed, this is going to get triggered again. So what we can do is, rather than receiving the values directly over here, we can have a use effect with the dependency of this state variable, and inside this use effect, let's bring that in, and this is going to take the dependency of the state. So inside this use effect, what I can check is if the state error is true, then I'm going to set the errors like this. Set errors, the same variables, state variables can be used to show the errors just like it is being used over here. So this is going to get triggered if something is changed from the server side, the state is going to be changed, and this is going to be set from the client side. So we have separately configured both of these things. All right, and if there is no error, if we can have if the state dot success, then we can simply log the message and anything we want. Okay, so this is simply console log success. This is the main part of it. Okay, so now let's go back to the user actions, and here I'm going to actually perform and store the data in the database. So let's try writing the try and catch block over here, catch, and this is going to take error of type any, and if there is error by unknown reason inside this catch block, we can return error true, success false, and error details we can simply return json.stringify and then the error. Okay, so I'm going to remove this return from here, and I'm also going to add the return statement over here if the DB storage of the user is successful. So since this is an async, I can write Prisma from the utils client dot user. This user is referring to the model name within our schema, and then we have the create. Okay, so inside it we can pass the data, and this can be the validate fields, validations, this one, validation dot data. Okay, so this is going to store the data in the database, and if it is successful, then I'm simply going to return error false and the success is true. Okay, so let's save it, and I hope that everything is done well over here, and let's go inside the user form, and whenever the state is going to get changed from here, whether from the try block, whether from the catch block, whether from these error details, then this is going to get triggered. But here it has some issues currently. Let's say the error is returned from here, then it is going to be returning the error true, success false, and error details of type string. It is going to be stringified. But here, if it is successful, then this is not going to return any error details. So what we can do is, it's up to you how you want to handle it. Inside this error state, I can write if type of state.error details equals to string, then I'm simply going to set the error messages state.error details, and this is going to be shown up over here below all of these fields. This is going to be the error message returned from the catch block over here. It can be the unknown error, and if it is not of type of string, it means that the error is being thrown from here, field errors. So I can write set error messages, and I can simply copy it from here, the format error messages. Okay, state dot error details can be replaced inside it. So rather than entering this, we can write state dot error details, and that's it. All right, I've commented these console logs, and one last thing that I would need to do, I want to show both the success and the error messages over here, and after that I also need to add some loaders to this button using an amazing hook provided by Next.js. So inside it, what I can do is I can check if the state.error, actually state.success exists. Then I'm simply going to show the success message like the user has been added. Otherwise, inside it, I'm simply going to cut it over here and remove these curly braces. Error message, these are the square brackets. Actually, I need to add it this question mark. Okay, so now let's go over here and let's try to enter the wrong details. Obviously wrong details are going to be detected on the client side, and you might be confused that why I've added all these validation on the server side. Because of the security reasons, somebody might breach into my server action and can perform the data, so I needed to add some validation. Otherwise, if someone is using only front end, then only the client side validation is going to perform all these details. The reason I've added it on the client side because I want to quickly validate the data on the client side, because I don't want to trigger the server action to delay my error messages delay the validations to show the error. So it should be quickly visible on the client side if there are some errors. On the client side, on the server side, sorry, the reason is just for security purpose, if somebody trying to access the actions. All right, so now I'm going to validate that. So let's try to see. First of all, let's add some correct details. We can add the phone numbers if we want and some address. Click on submit. And this is the correct detail. And after some time, it has shown this user have been added. I've added the correct details. And now over here, let's refresh this and see if the user is added in the DB or not. And yes, the data have been added in the database successfully. It means that over here, this return statement was triggered. Error false, success true. That's why this particular error.success got triggered and this message have been added. All right, one last thing I want to show you that how to add the loader to this button during the process of submitting the form, and the loader should be button should be back to clickable if the form is submitted and user is successfully added. Okay, and for that I'm going to be creating a new component, and this is going to be called, let's say, user submit button. Okay, and inside this submit button, this is also going to be the use client, and I'm going to import use form status from React DOM. And now I'm going to add the const submit button, and it is already suggesting me few things. I think I'm going to copy these class names over here, and I'm going to add, let's close this up, let's add the return, and inside it let's add the button. And for this particular button I'm going to add a class. Okay, and here I can add the const pending from use form status, which I have imported above, and button is going to be disabled if it is pending. And now for the text, what I can do is, if it is pending, then I can show submitting. If it is not pending, then I'm simply going to show the submit. Okay, and lastly, let's export the submit button. Now over here, rather than actually using this button directly, I can use that submit button component over here within this form. So let's try to add the submit button like this. Okay, so now this submit button is being fetched from this particular component. Okay, now let's try to click on the submit quickly, and all of these errors are visible. These are the validations that we are checking: first name, last name, invalid email, email must be at least 8 characters. Now let's try to click on these things. Email is unique, so let's try to enter some random email. Zip is like this, address is like this. All right, and now if I click on submit, it will show some loader automatically during the process of submitting the form and storing the data in the database. Let's click on the submit. You can see for half a second or a second, it showed the loader, disabled the button, and then this is the message is being visible. Now let's see if the second user is added over here in the DB or not. So it should be added, yes. So you can see that this has been added over here, first name, and this is the new email ID which I added. Okay, so our form is built with all the validation, with the server actions, with the user loader, and using validation on the client side as well as on the server side. And this is the basic structure which I follow usually when I build the form in my own applications. So guys, I hope that you have learned something new from this video, and if you have any question or if you have any suggestions, then you can comment below of this particular video. And if you have any development services from me, then you can contact me on LinkedIn from the description of this video. So thank you so much for watching, guys. I'm gonna create more videos on Next.js15, so do subscribe my channel and like this video and support me for creating more videos for you guys. See you in the next video. Thank you again for watching my tutorials.